We have watched Jenny Slatten cry about her finances for season after season. We have seen the desperation in her eyes as she claims she has absolutely nothing left in America. She sold her furniture, she gave up her apartment, and she took a massive hit on her retirement just to be with the man she loves. But a new explosive report from a forensic accountant who has been tracking the production finances suggests that this poverty isn't just bad luck. It is manufactured. The theory is terrifying. Sumit and his parents aren't fighting. They are conspiring. We are looking at allegations of a complex financial system designed to siphon Jenny's U.S. Social Security checks and pension directly into a holding company in New Delhi. And the reality is that Jenny might not even have access to her own money anymore. This isn't a romance. It is a heist. If you think Sumit knows exactly where every dollar is going and you want to see us expose the paper trail, hit that like button right now. It helps the algorithm share this investigation with other fans who deserve the truth. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications because we are about to unravel the darkest financial conspiracy in 90-Day Fiancé history. Let's go back to the beginning to understand how this trap was allegedly set. To understand the siphon, you have to understand the sacrifice. When Jenny decided to move to India permanently, she didn't just buy a plane ticket, she liquidated her entire life. We aren't just talking about selling a couch or a car, we are talking about the distinct financial decision to file for her Social Security benefits at the age of 62. Anyone who knows anything about American retirement planning knows that taking your benefits at 62 is a financially desperate measure. You take a permanent reduction in your monthly payout. You are locking yourself into a lower income bracket for the rest of your life. Jenny did this willingly. She went on camera and told the world that she had to do it because her savings were gone and living in America was too expensive. She sold the narrative that India was her financial salvation. She told us, and she told her daughters, that her meager Social Security check, which would be poverty wages in Palm Springs, would let her live like a queen in New Delhi. But has she ever lived like a queen? Look at the footage. Look at the houses. Look at the struggle. For years, the math has never added up. Viewers have been asking in the forums for seasons why a woman bringing in American dollars to a country with a significantly lower cost of living seems to be constantly scraping by. We see them in rundown apartments. We see them stressing about basic amenities. We see Jenny crying that she cannot afford a ticket back home to visit her family. We assumed it was just poor management. We assumed they were bad with money. But the new theory suggests that the money isn't being wasted, it's being stolen. The insider reports circling the deep web of reality TV leaks suggest that Sumit and his family have executed what con artists call the long con. The foundation of this theory relies on the discrepancy between Jenny's income and their lifestyle. Let's look at the numbers that the forensic analysis suggests. Even at a reduced rate, an American Social Security check goes a very long way in India. We are talking about a conversion rate that should allow for a comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyle. Yet, Jenny acts like she is one missed payment away from homelessness. Why? The report alleges that Jenny does not control her own bank account. The theory posits that early on in her move, under the guise of visa regulations and banking difficulties for foreigners, Jenny was convinced to sign over power of attorney or, at the very least, add Sumit as a primary joint holder on her accounts to facilitate transfers. They likely told her it was necessary. They likely told her that as a tourist or a visitor on a continually extending visa, she couldn't legally hold certain assets or pay for certain utilities without a local citizen's name attached. It sounds plausible. It sounds like boring bureaucracy, but it is the key to the handcuffs. Once that control was handed over, the siphon began. The insider theory suggests that Sumit isn't just a hapless husband trying to please his mommy. He is the bridge. The narrative we see on TV, the screaming matches, the disowned son, the mother who threatens suicide if they get married, is allegedly theater. It is a distraction. While we are all focused on whether Sadhna will accept Jenny, we aren't looking at the bank statements. The report indicates that the rent Jenny and Sumit pay to live in the upstairs apartment of the family home isn't rent at all. It is a direct monthly transfer of Jenny's pension to Sadhna. Think about it. Why would parents who hate Jenny so much allow her to live in their house? They claimed it was to keep an eye on her, to teach her how to be a traditional Indian wife. But does that make sense? Or does it make sense that they want her close so they can monitor the asset? If Jenny is living in their house, paying them rent, and paying for all the groceries and household expenses, she is effectively funding the very people who abuse her. The theory goes deeper. It suggests that a holding company or a distinct financial entity was created under Sumit's name in New Delhi. The Social Security checks hit Jenny's US account, are automatically transferred to this joint Indian account, and then are immediately drained into the family trust. This explains why Jenny claims she has nothing left. In her mind, she sees the money come in and immediately go out to bills and living expenses. But she has no idea that those expenses are inflated. She is paying a premium for her own captivity. This brings us to the concept of the golden handcuffs. We have always wondered why Jenny doesn't just leave when things get bad. We scream at the TV, telling her to book a flight and go stay on her daughter's couch. She always cries and says she can't. She says she has no home in America, but it is more than that. If this financial siphon theory is true, Jenny physically cannot buy a ticket because she has zero liquid cash. She isn't just a resident, she is a financial hostage. If she tries to leave, she might find that her access to the joint account is cut off instantly. She is trapped in a cycle where she has to stay in India to afford to live, but the cost of living in India is being artificially inflated by Sumit's family to ensure she never saves enough to escape. Let's analyze the psychology of Sumit in this scenario. For seasons, he has played the role of the victim. He is the man caught between two worlds. He loves Jenny, but he fears his mother. It's a compelling story. It keeps us watching. But look at his actions with a colder, more cynical eye. Every time Jenny gets close to a breaking point, he does just enough to reel her back in. He marries her in secret, but only after years of stalling. Why? Was it love? Or was it because the visa was about to expire, and if Jenny had to go back to America, the money train would leave with her? The marriage wasn't a romantic gesture. It was a business transaction to secure the asset. By marrying her, he ensured she could stay in the country indefinitely, keeping that monthly transfer flowing directly into the family coffers. And what about the parents? Sadhna and her husband. The villains of the story. We see them humiliate Jenny. We see them force her to clean the floor until she cries. We see them insult her age and her appearance. It is brutal to watch. But ask yourself, why do they tolerate her presence at all? If they truly religiously objected to this union, they could have physically removed her. They could have called the authorities. They could have completely cut Sumit off, but they didn't. They kept the drama going. The forensic theory suggests that the screaming matches are a smokescreen. If they were nice to Jenny, we might start asking questions about why they are so accommodating. But if they hate her, we assume they want nothing from her. It's the perfect cover. We don't want her money, we don't even want her here. Creates a plausible deniability. Meanwhile, the transfer history tells a different story. There have been rumors, verified but persistent, about a new vehicle. Photos have surfaced on obscure fan forums that seem to show Sumit driving a brand new high-end SUV. It's not a car that fits the struggling couple narrative. On the show, we see them taking auto rickshaws. We see them walking through dusty streets. We see them counting rupees at the market. But off camera, where did the funds for a luxury vehicle come from? Jenny doesn't drive in India. That car isn't for her. If these photos are real, and if the timeline aligns with Jenny's pension payouts, we are looking at physical evidence of the siphon. Sumit is driving Jenny's retirement. The complexity of this alleged scheme is what makes it so difficult to spot. It relies on Jenny's ignorance of Indian banking laws and her total emotional dependence on Sumit. She doesn't read the language fluently. She doesn't understand the tax codes. She trusts Sumit to handle the boring stuff while she focuses on the relationship. That trust is the weapon. The report hints that there may be documents Jenny signed that she believed were standard residency forms, which actually authorize the diversion of funds into high-interest savings accounts that she is not a signatory on. This would mean that even if she went to the bank herself, they couldn't help her. The money is legally Sumit's the moment it touches Indian soil. This contextualizes her tears in a whole new light. When Jenny cries, it's not just heartbreak, it's a subconscious realization that she is drowning. She feels the walls closing in, but she can't identify the mechanism. She thinks it's culture shock. She thinks it's interfering with in-laws. She doesn't realize that she is the mark in a confidence game that has been running for a decade. The catfish beginning of their relationship shouldn't be forgotten. Remember how this started? Sumit lied about who he was. He used a fake photo. He used a fake name. He was a professional liar from day one. We forgave him because he did it for love. But a leopard doesn't change its spots. A man who can lie about his identity for years is a man capable of lying about his finances for years. The catfish didn't stop. It just evolved into a whale hunt. And consider the consulting fees. Some insiders speculate that the holding company set up by the parents might be categorized as a business consultancy or a family trust, allowing them to funnel the money as business expenses to avoid taxes. Jenny's contribution is just a line item. This level of sophistication implies that Sumit's parents aren't just traditionalists, they are calculating operators. The father, often seen as the quieter, more reasonable one, might actually be the architect. While Sadhna provides the emotional distraction with her theatrics, the father manages the ledger. It's a good cop, bad cop routine, but both cops are dirty. The devastating part of this theory is the total isolation it creates. By stripping Jenny of her financial independence, they ensure she has no exit strategy. If she wants to leave, she needs their permission to access the funds to do so. It is a closed loop, and with every year that passes, Jenny gets older, more vulnerable, and less likely to fight back. She becomes more entrenched in the system they have built around her. The forensic accountant's report, if true, paints a picture of elder abuse on an international scale, broadcast on national television as entertainment. We have to ask ourselves why the show hasn't exposed this. Does the network know? Reality TV production involves deep background checks and financial disclosures. It is highly likely that the production team is aware of the joint accounts. But a story about financial abuse is dark. It's legal trouble. A story about a mother-in-law who hates her son's older wife is a comedy and drama. It's safe. The network may be complicit in hiding the siphon because the Romeo and Juliet narrative sells better than the Bonnie and Clyde reality. They edit the footage to show the emotional struggle, leaving the financial reality on the cutting room floor. But the cracks are showing. Viewers are getting smarter. We are noticing the inconsistencies. We are seeing the new clothes, the gold jewelry Sadhna wears, the home renovations that seem to happen in the background of the parents' house. Where's the money coming from? Sumit was unemployed for a long time. He claimed he quit his job to be with Jenny. So, zero income from him. Jenny is on a fixed income. Yet the family wealth seems to be increasing. The only variable that changed was the arrival of Jenny and her American dollars. This is the context of the trap. It wasn't sprung overnight. It was a slow, methodical process of eroding Jenny's boundaries and her bank balance. They wore her down with love bombing, then confused her with legal hurdles, and finally locked her in with guilt and fear. Now she sits in that apartment crying about being accepted while the people she seeks acceptance from are allegedly cashing her checks. Let's dig deeper into the mechanics of this alleged financial extraction, because the devil is truly in the details. The forensic report we have reviewed points to a specific timeline that aligns perfectly with Jenny's financial decline and the sudden, unexplained rise in the standard of living for Sumit's extended family. To understand the joint account trap, we have to look at the logistical nightmare of being an expat in India. When Jenny first arrived, she was hit with a wall of bureaucracy. Opening a bank account as a foreigner without permanent residency is incredibly difficult. Landlords often refuse to rent to foreigners without a local guarantor. Getting internet, a gas connection, or even a SIM card can require an Indian national's identification. This is the friction point where the trap was sprung. The theory suggests that Sumit used these very real bureaucratic hurdles to convince Jenny that the only way for them to survive was to merge their finances completely under his name. It wasn't presented as theft. It was presented as a solution. Baby, you can't sign the lease, so just transfer the funds to me and I will handle it. Baby, the bank won't let you have a debit card here, so add me to your US account so we can withdraw rupees easily. It sounds like a helpful partner trying to navigate a complex system. But the moment Jenny signed that power of attorney or added his name to the deed of her assets, she crossed a Rubicon from which there is no return. She handed him the keys to the vault. Now, let's talk about the parental kickback. This is perhaps the most disturbing element of the entire theory. We watch the show and see Sumit's mother, Sadhna, screaming at Jenny, calling her useless, and demanding she clean the kitchen. We interpret this as hatred, but the financial analysis suggests this is actually a negotiation tactic. The report alleges that the rent Jenny pays to live in the upstairs apartment is significantly higher than the market rate for that neighborhood in New Delhi. If you look at comparable listings in that specific area, for a floor in a family home, the cost should be nominal. Yet insiders claim Jenny is paying an amount closer to what you would pay for a luxury flat in a prime district. Where is the difference going? It is a direct kickback to the parents. Think about the psychology of this. If Sadhna acts like she hates Jenny, then Jenny feels she has to buy her way into the family's good graces. She pays the inflated rent without complaint because she feels guilty. She pays for the groceries for the entire family because she wants to prove her worth. She likely pays for the utilities, the repairs, and the festivals. The theory posits that Sadhna's screaming is designed to keep Jenny insecure. If Jenny felt secure, she might look at the bills. But because she is constantly terrified of being kicked out, she opens her wallet to smooth things over. Anger is the distraction, money is the goal. Every time Sadhna threatens to kick them out, Jenny likely offers more financial support to stay. It is a protection racket, plain and simple. And we need to address the renovation con. Do you remember the scenes where they are fixing up the house, painting the walls, buying furniture, making the upstairs livable? Who do you think paid for that? Jenny has stated on camera that she used her savings to set up their life, but here is the catch. She doesn't own the house. The house belongs to Sumit's parents. Every dollar Jenny spent on paint, on flooring, on fixtures was a direct capital injection into the parents' assets. She increased the value of their property using her American retirement funds. If she leaves tomorrow, she takes nothing with her. The paint stays on the wall. The floors stay on the ground. She has effectively engaged in a massive wealth transfer disguised as nesting. The forensic theory suggests that the parents allowed the relationship to continue specifically because they needed that upstairs unit renovated and they didn't want to pay for it themselves. They found a willing investor in Jenny, extracted the renovations, and are now collecting the dividends. But the most damning piece of evidence that internet sleuths have been circulating involves the luxury car. We see Sumit and Jenny on the show living a humble life. They take rickshaws, they walk, they take the train. It fits the narrative of the struggling couple fighting for love against the odds. However, leaked photos that have surfaced on private social media accounts linked to Sumit's friends show a different reality. There are images of a sleek new SUV, a vehicle that costs upwards of $20,000 to $30,000 in India, parked in the family compound. In one photo, a man who looks exactly like Sumit is seen behind the wheel, wearing sunglasses, looking nothing like the stressed-out son we see on TV. If this car exists, and if it was purchased during the time Jenny has been crying poverty, we have to ask who paid for it. Sumit has been unemployed or working odd jobs for most of the series. His parents are retired or nearing retirement. Where does a lump sum of cash for a luxury vehicle come from? The timeline suggests it aligns with the sale of Jenny's assets in America. The theory is that a portion of the money Jenny brought over, money she thought was going into a savings account for their future, was diverted to purchase this vehicle. But here is the kicker. The car is likely not in Jenny's name. It is likely in Sumit's name or his father's name. They get the asset. She gets the ride to the market. It is the perfect symbol of their dynamic. She fuels the engine, but they steer the car. Let's pivot to the golden handcuffs and the utter lack of an exit strategy. This is where the scam becomes a prison. Viewers constantly ask, why doesn't she just go back to Palm Springs? The answer, according to this theory, is that she physically cannot afford the plane ticket. We aren't talking about the price of a flight being high, we are talking about a liquidity crisis. If the siphon theory is correct, Jenny's monthly Social Security check hits the joint account and is immediately dispersed to various expenses: rent to the parents, payments to the holding company, bills, food. The account balance is likely kept intentionally low, hovering just above zero. This means Jenny has no running away fund, she has no secret stash. To buy a ticket home, she would need to ask Sumit for the money. Imagine that conversation. Sumit, I want to leave you. Can you transfer me $2,000? He would simply say no, or he would say, we don't have it right now, baby, we just paid the rent. She is trapped by the very system she funded. This explains the panic we see in her eyes. It explains why she tolerates the humiliation. She knows on a subconscious level that she is stranded. She is not a tourist anymore. She is an indentured servant to her own marriage. Furthermore, we need to look at the role of the astrologer. This character has popped up repeatedly to give advice on the relationship. He always seems to have a solution that involves waiting or performing a ceremony or staying put. The forensic accountant's report suggests checking the financial connections here as well. Is the astrologer an independent advisor, or is he on the payroll? It is a classic con artist tactic to bring in a third-party authority to validate the scam. When Jenny gets restless, they take her to the astrologer. The astrologer tells her, the stars say you must be patient. The stars say you must stay in the house. This spiritual bypassing effectively neutralizes her desire to leave. It buys the family more time to extract more checks. If the astrologer is receiving a consultation fee from the family pot, which is funded by Jenny, then she is literally paying a man to tell her to stay in an abusive situation. The level of coordination required for this alleged conspiracy implies that Sumit is not the bumbling, fearful man-child he pretends to be. That persona is a shield. If he acts incompetent, Jenny doesn't suspect him of being malicious. She thinks he is just trying his best. But look at the results. He has successfully kept an American woman in India for years, separated her from her family, liquidated her assets, and funneled her income into his family's estate, all while managing to look like the victim of his mother's wrath. That is not the work of an idiot. That is the work of a mastermind. We also have to consider the visa extension cycle. Every few months, there is a dramatic plot point about Jenny's visa expiring. They run around, they stress, they visit lawyers. This drama serves a financial purpose. It keeps Jenny in a state of high anxiety where she is willing to pay anything to solve the problem. We need to pay this lawyer. We need to pay this bribe. We need to pay for this express processing. How much of that money actually goes to the government and how much goes into Sumit's pocket? The visa crisis is a renewable resource for the scam. As long as her status is uncertain, her wallet is open. And what about the silence of Jenny's daughters? We see them on the show, skeptical and worried, but why haven't they intervened more forcefully? It is possible they don't know the full extent of the financial entanglement. Jenny is proud. She defended Sumit to them for years. She likely hides the truth of her bank balance from them to avoid hearing, "I told you so." The scammers count on this pride. They know Jenny will lie to her own children to protect the image of her perfect love, effectively acting as the PR manager for the people robbing her. The isolation is complete. She is cut off physically by geography and emotionally by her own need to be right. Let's zoom out and look at the holding company structure again. The report speculates that the family might have set up a small business entity, perhaps related to food service or consulting, which allows them to wash the money. If Jenny's contribution is labeled as an investment in a family business, it gives them legal cover. If she ever tries to sue them, they can claim she was a business partner and the business simply lost money. It's a civil matter, not a criminal one. The police won't get involved. It is a brilliant, airtight setup designed to withstand scrutiny. The brand new lifestyle of the parents is another smoking gun. Compare the footage of the parents' home from the first season they appeared to the most recent season. Notice the furniture, notice the electronics in the background, notice the quality of the saris Sadhna is wearing. There has been a subtle but definite upgrade. In a country where upward mobility can be slow for retirees, this sudden injection of wealth is suspicious. Did Sumit's father win the lottery, or did they win the Jenny lottery? The forensic analysis tracks the cost of these upgrades and finds they correlate strangely with the timeline of Jenny's pension payouts. There is also the matter of the health scares. Whenever Jenny gets too close to the truth or too fed up with the abuse, someone gets sick. Sumit gets a stomach virus. Sadhna has high blood pressure. The father has a dizzy spell. Medical bills in India, while cheaper than the US, can still be used as a pretext for cash withdrawals. Mom is sick. We need 50,000 rupees for the hospital. Does Jenny ask for the receipt? Probably not. She is too busy playing the concerned daughter-in-law. The health scare is the emergency brake they pull whenever the money train threatens to derail. This theory reframes the entire show. We thought we were watching a cross-cultural romance struggling against tradition. In reality, we might be watching a documentary about a financial predator dissecting his prey. The love Sumit professes is real in one sense. He loves the lifestyle she provides. He loves the car. He loves the renovations. He loves not having to work a 9-to-5 job because his wife's government check covers the spread. He is dependent on her, yes, but like a parasite is dependent on a host. This brings us to the most terrifying question of all: what happens when the money runs out? Social Security is for life, but its value decreases with inflation. As Jenny gets older, her medical needs will increase. She will become more expensive to keep. The long con usually has an expiration date. When the asset becomes a liability, the scammers usually cut ties. Are we approaching the season where Sumit finally can't take the pressure of his mother anymore and files for divorce? If he does, he walks away with the renovated house, the car, the savings in the joint account, and his freedom. Jenny walks away with nothing. She would be returned to America destitute, too old to work, with no home and no credit. The evidence of the production's complicity is also worth noting. Why do the producers never ask Sumit about his job? In almost every other 90-day storyline, the partner's employment is a major plot point. With Sumit, it is glossed over. We are told he used to work in a call center. That was years ago. What does he do from Monday to Friday? The cameras never follow him to a workplace. They never show him logging into a remote job. He is always available to film, always available to drive Jenny around. The silence on his career is deafening. It suggests that his career is managing Jenny. The producers likely know this doesn't fit the romantic struggle arc, so they ignore it. But by ignoring it, they are helping to hide the siphon. We also need to talk about the friends that surround them. The circle of friends we see on camera, are they real friends or are they accomplices? Notice how they always side with Sumit. They always tell Jenny she needs to try harder to impress the parents. They act as enforcers of the narrative. You must understand Indian culture, they say. But is stealing an old woman's pension Indian culture? No. They are gaslighting her into accepting the abuse as tradition. If these friends are benefiting from Sumit's newfound wealth, perhaps through loans, dinners, or status, they have a vested interest in keeping Jenny compliant. The Social Security siphon theory is not just about money, it's about the complete dismantling of a human being's autonomy. It explains every tear, every fight, and every illogical decision we have seen on screen. Jenny isn't stupid, she is systematically being disoriented. It is a psychological war waged with rupees and dollars, and the worst part, we are the audience applauding the performance. We hit like, we comment, we boost the ratings, which keeps the show on the air, which keeps the paycheck coming, which keeps Jenny in the trap. As we move into the final part of this investigation, we are going to look at the end game. We have received reports about a potential final discard phase that is being planned. We will explore what happens if Jenny actually tries to reclaim her accounts and the legal nightmare that awaits her. We will also expose the fake divorce strategy that might be their next move to legally separate Jenny from her remaining assets while keeping her in the country. This gets darker, and the financial trail leads to places you would never expect. We are now arriving at the most critical and disturbing chapter of the Social Security siphon investigation, the endgame. Every con has an expiration date. Every Ponzi scheme eventually collapses. And for the financial architecture Sumit and his family have allegedly built around Jenny Slatten, the clock is ticking. The forensic accountant's report we have been dissecting does not just look at the past. It projects the future based on the spending patterns and the legal maneuvering we have observed. The theory suggests we are entering the discard phase, a brutal final act where the asset, Jenny, is no longer generating enough revenue to justify the maintenance costs, and the family prepares to cut her loose while keeping the capital. The harsh reality of the situation is biological and economic. Jenny is aging. We are now in 2026. Jenny is approaching her late 60s. Her medical needs are statistically guaranteed to increase. In the United States, she would have Medicare. In India, as a foreigner, she requires private health insurance or direct cash payments for high-quality care. The siphon theory posits that Sumit's family has crunched the numbers. There is a tipping point where Jenny's monthly Social Security check is no longer profitable. It becomes a break-even sum and eventually a loss. When her medical bills exceed the monthly transfer, she ceases to be a cash cow and becomes a liability. The reports from production insiders suggest that the tension we are seeing in recent updates is not about cleaning the kitchen anymore. It is about the family realizing the return on investment is plummeting. This brings us to the fake divorce strategy. Legal experts familiar with Indian family law have pointed out a terrifying possibility that could leave Jenny destitute. In India, divorce proceedings can drag on for years, but settlements are often based on documented assets. If the joint account trap worked as we suspect, and Jenny voluntarily signed over her assets to Sumit or put them into a trust where she is not the primary beneficiary, a divorce would leave her with nothing. The theory is that Sumit could file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences or family pressure, the perfect cover story, and legally, Jenny would walk away with only what she brought into the marriage. But since she liquidated her U.S. assets and spent them on living expenses, which were actually transfers to the parents, her ledger shows zero. She cannot claim half of the house because her name isn't on the deed. She cannot claim the car because it is in his name. She cannot claim the savings because they have been funneled into the parents' separate accounts. The divorce wouldn't be a splitting of assets, it would be an eviction. Furthermore, we have to consider the Sridhan loophole. In Indian law, Sridan refers to the gifts and property given to a woman during her marriage, which are hers to keep. Usually, this includes gold and jewelry. Have you noticed that despite the money flowing in, Jenny possesses very little gold? It is Sadhna, the mother, who is draped in jewelry. The theory suggests this is intentional. By denying Jenny the traditional accumulation of gold, which acts as a savings account for Indian wives, they have ensured she has no Sridan to walk away with. They have stripped her of the cultural safety net while exploiting the cultural expectations of a dutiful wife. Let's look at the role of the TLC paycheck in this endgame. For years, fans have argued, well, they get paid by the show, so they are fine. But this investigation suggests the TLC money is the cherry on top of the siphon, not the safety net. Contractually, U.S. networks often have difficulty paying foreign nationals directly due to work visa restrictions. In the past, this meant the American cast member got all the money. However, if Sumit and Jenny set up an Indian LLC or a consulting firm to receive the payments as a vendor for the production, a common workaround, then the checks are going into the corporate account controlled by Sumit. If the show is canceled or if they are fired, that revenue stream dries up instantly. The rumors circulating in the industry are that Sumit has been pushing for a spin-off not for fame, but because the family has become addicted to the liquidity the show provides. They need the cameras to keep rolling because the cameras distract Jenny from looking at the ledger. But what happens if Jenny tries to fight back? This is where the embassy problem arises. Viewers constantly scream, "Call the U.S. Embassy!" expecting the Marines to show up and rescue her. It doesn't work that way. The forensic report highlights that this is a civil matter, not a criminal one in the eyes of the law. Jenny willingly signed the checks. She willingly moved to India. She willingly married him. Unless there is proof of physical coercion, a gun to the head, the police and the embassy will view this as a domestic financial dispute. And in a domestic dispute in a foreign court, the local citizen with the local lawyer and the local language always wins. Sumit knows this. His father knows this. They rely on the fact that Jenny is legally isolated. She has no standing to demand an audit of the family's finances because she is, on paper, just a contributor to the household expenses. The medical emergency con is another potential endgame scenario identified by fraud examiners. As the discard phase approaches, we might see a sudden, catastrophic medical emergency involving one of the parents. This is a classic exit scam tactic. They might claim the father needs a heart surgery that costs exactly the amount remaining in Jenny's 401k or savings. They will pressure her, "If you love us, you will save him." Jenny, desperate for approval, will drain the last of her liquidity. Once the money is handed over, the surgery will be successful, or perhaps never needed to happen, but the money will be gone. This clears out the last of the assets before they initiate the breakup. It is the final harvest before the winter. We also need to revisit the ghost baby narrative. Remember the adoption and surrogacy storylines? They went nowhere, but they consumed hours of screen time and likely thousands of dollars in consultations and agency fees. The theory implies that there never was a baby plan. The money set aside for the child was simply a vehicle to move funds from Jenny's access to a segregated account. "We need to save $10,000 for the surrogacy agency," Sumit might say. Jenny agrees. The money moves, the surrogacy falls through, but the money never moves back. It stays in the baby fund, which is actually just Sumit's personal investment portfolio. The non-existent child was the most profitable family member. The psychological toll of this long con creates a phenomenon known as the sunk cost trap. At this point, Jenny has invested over a decade of her life, her entire reputation, her relationship with her daughters, and her life savings into this man. To leave now is to admit that she was a fool. To leave now is to admit that the haters were right. The scammers weaponize this pride. They know she will endure almost any indignity to avoid facing the reality that she has been played. This is why she defends him so fiercely on the tell-all specials. She isn't defending him, she is defending her own sacrifice. The moment she admits he is a con man, her entire life in India collapses into a tragedy, so she becomes a co-conspirator in her own victimization, gaslighting herself to keep the illusion alive. Let's talk about friends again, Sumit's entourage. In a typical financial fraud of this magnitude, you need layers. The ghost employees theory suggests that some of the money siphoned from the household budget is paid out to these friends for services rendered, perhaps for driving, for security, for IT support. These payments lower the taxable income of the holding company while keeping the friends loyal. If Jenny ever tried to leave in the middle of the night, these are the friends who would likely be watching the door. They aren't hanging out, they are on the clock. The social circle is a perimeter fence. There's also the dark possibility of identity theft continuing after death. It is a morbid thought, but forensic accountants see it all the time. If Jenny were to pass away in India, how quickly would the U.S. Social Security Administration be notified? The theory suggests that Sumit, holding all her documents and access to her accounts, could potentially delay reporting her death to keep the checks coming for months or even years. In a chaotic bureaucratic system, proof of life can sometimes be forged. By the time the U.S. government catches on, the accounts would be drained and the money moved into hard assets like gold or real estate, untraceable and unrecoverable. It is the ultimate extension of the siphon, robbing the grave. Now, look at the geography of their residence. They live in a place chosen by Sumit. They are far from the expat hubs where Jenny might meet other Americans who could warn her. They are isolated. This isolation is strategic. If she had American friends in Delhi, they might ask, "Wait, why don't you have a debit card? Why is your name not on the lease?" By keeping her exclusively within his social sphere, he controls the flow of information. He interprets the world for her. He translates the laws for her. He is the filter through which she sees reality, and the filter is distorted to serve his bank balance. The call center past of Sumit is the piece of the puzzle that locks everything together. We brushed it off as a joke in the first season. He catfished her from a call center, but think about the skills you learn in a shady call center. You learn how to manipulate people over the phone. You learn how to gain trust quickly. You learn how to overcome objections. You learn how to extract financial information. Sumit didn't just stumble into this dynamic. He was trained for it. He used professional social engineering techniques on a lonely woman he found online. The entire relationship is a long-form version of the grandson in jail scam or the IRS audit scam, just played out over 10 years with real emotions involved. He is using the same script, just in slow motion. So, where does this leave us? And where does it leave Jenny? If the reports are true, she is standing on a trapdoor that is about to open. The Social Security siphon is nearly complete. The assets are transferred, the house is renovated, the car is bought, the parents are comfortable. Jenny is the empty husk that remains. We have presented the evidence. We have connected the dots from the visa issues to the secret marriage, from the screaming mother to the silent father, from the fake poverty to the hidden luxury. The narrative of 90-Day Fiancé wants you to believe this is a story about forbidden love. But the forensic clues tell a story about permitted theft. We need to make this viral. We need to get this theory in front of Jenny's daughters. We need to get this in front of the producers. If Jenny is truly a hostage to her own finances, the only thing that can save her is public scrutiny. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you believe that Jenny Slatten deserves to know the truth about where her money is going, you need to act now. Hit that like button to force this video into the recommended feeds of other fans. Share this video on the forums, on Reddit, on Twitter. Tag the network, ask the hard questions. Show us the bank statements. Who owns the car? Who owns the house? Don't just watch the tragedy unfold, help us stop it. Subscribe to the channel right now because in our next video, we are going to release the names of the alleged shell companies and the specific timeline of the transfers. You do not want to miss that. The truth is out there and we are going to find it. This isn't just reality TV anymore. It's a crime scene. Thanks for watching and stay vigilant.